Hey guys, it's Jacob. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about standalone PCMs, why you'd want them, what they are, and how to set them up. So the first question is, what even is a standalone PCM? And why do you need it? So a standalone PCM is a powertrain control module that controls your engine that basically you can control however you want. You can make it run however you want. You can make it do anything you want it to do. And it also, because it's standalone, it doesn't need inputs from other modules like your security modules or your ignition. You don't need to have a key programmed to run your standalone PCM. It'll just run on its own, just from 12 volt power. But then comes to our next question, like what instances do you actually want one? So the first one, and the one most people do, is if you make a serious modification to your engine and you need to change the tuning, like how your engine runs. So say you put a turbocharger on a car that wasn't factory equipped with a turbocharger. It's going to need different fuel trims, it's going to want more fuel, it's going to want different ignition timing, stuff like that. And with the standalone PCM, you can do all that. So the second instance where you'd want a standalone PCM is if you were taking an engine from one car, like the Super Duty over here, and wanted to put it in another car, like my Ranger. Obviously, that engine would never fit, but let's pretend it did for a second. First thing we need to do to get that engine to run is to get the powertrain control module to communicate with the other modules. Now, that's pretty much impossible in my Ranger, because that's a newer car, that's a newer engine. It has no idea about any of the modules in this car. So if you just put a standalone PCM in that, it's not going to care, because the standalone control module is, like I said, standalone. It runs on its own. It does everything on its own. So you don't need any of that. All you need to do is put a few basic inputs in, and then it should run. Next thing we're going to talk about is how do you actually set it up. So the first thing you're going to need to do is download the software. So I'm using the MS3PRO to run my engine, and in order to program that and get all your settings in there and everything you need to get it to run, you're going to pull up a Google tab and shoot. Yeah, so you're going to pull up a Google tab. I already have it right here. Just go to DIY Autotune, software and downloads right here, and then you'll find whatever platform you have it on. So I'm sure they have Mac on here. You've got all these other goodies. So just find the right download for you. If you have another version or another standalone PCM, you're going to need to find the software for that. So once you've got your software downloaded and ran it and let it install, you can just open it up like this. And it's going to pop up something like this. So from what you're going to want to do there, click right here, open up a new project. And this will let you put your name and firmware and everything like that. And now this is something that actually gave me some trouble for a while. So if you have your PCM hooked up to your computer, you click detect your firmware right here, and it can't find your PCM being hooked up, you actually need to go over to here, open up a new tab, and then search FTP, there it is, Virtual COM Driver. And this is basically just what lets your computer talk to the PCM. Pretty straightforward. I think this is a Chinese company, so I can't guarantee they won't sell your data, but you don't need that anyways. And so right here, installation guides, VCP drivers, just scroll down until you find the download right here. Don't download this is going to make it really complicated to install. Just go ahead and click here and do the setup executable. That'll make it super easy for you. So this is your factory PCM connector right here. Not much to see there, pretty simple. Each one of these wires controls something in your car or is an input from a sensor or something in your car. Here's our MS3PRO, which is our standalone PCM. As you can see, there's nowhere to plug this into here. So basically what you end up having to do is you take these cables, plug them into here. Each one of these cables has just a big old bundle of wires coming out of them. And each one of these wires will correspond to one of these wires in here, or most of them. You may not end up needing all of them. Some of them are for certain vehicles or a sensor or something that your car doesn't have. As you can see, I've cut some of these wires off of here and hooked them up into these little connectors I made. This is from the standalone PCM. These wires are from the standalone PCM down here. These up here are from the engine, and I've labeled them what they mean just to kind of help keep it organized, because as you can see, it's already enough of a mess. There's just wires going everywhere. And it's worth pointing out that if you're running an engine that's kind of a popular platform, like LS engines, you won't have to do this harness yourself. There's companies that sell the kit, and all you have to do is plug it in here, plug it into where your old PCM plugged in, and it's good to go. Like, there's nothing else to it. Super simple, super easy. To get this hooked up, you technically only need one input, and that's RPM, which is how fast your engine's going. As you can see here, we've got right here crankshaft position sensor, which is what gives you your RPM. That's just so your engine can know when to shoot spark and when to shoot fuel into the engine. But if you want to rev your engine up, you know, work the throttle and make the engine go faster or slower, you're going to need signal return and VREF and your throttle position. So once you've got your crankshaft position and throttle position hooked up, now you're going to want your outputs. So our two outputs for this are going to be spark plugs, or coil drivers, and fuel injectors. Our fuel injectors are just grounded by our micro squirt, so they get the power, they're hot at all times, and then the micro squirt MS3PRO down here is going to ground them, and that's going to make them shoot. But our coils aren't so easy. So our coils are going to be powered up by these little boxes right here. These little boxes are made to run a 4-cylinder engine each. So we have a V6 engine, so we need one of these boxes we're going to use all our wires on, and then the next box we're only going to use a couple of those wires. So once you're all loaded up, once you're connected to the car, everything's good and set up, all your inputs are good to go, all your outputs are good to go. First thing you're going to want to do is go to basic load settings here and go to engine and sequential settings. Now this is basically the most important information you're going to put in. If you get some of this wrong, or really any of this wrong, your engine's not going to run at all. It's probably going to backfire, spit smoke at you, all that good stuff. So we've got a lot of stuff here, but it's not too simple. It's not too bad once you start to see what we got going on here. So, you know, first you're going to choose, is it a 4-stroke, 2-stroke, rotary, that kind of stuff. Number of cylinders, that's obviously an important one. Number of injectors, engine size and CCs, and then injector size. Now, finding your injector size can be kind of tricky. A lot of that's online, but a lot of it is kind of buried. So you might have to do some digging for that. Or there's some handy charts that, if you know about how much horsepower your engine makes, you can estimate the size of your injectors. Alright, now the last step before you're ready to run is you're going to need a jumper switch to start your starter motor. If you're running this in a car, you'll just be able to use your ignition switch and all that original harness. But since we don't have any of that, we're just using a switch like this. So once you're ready, just fire it up. Now, we still got some tuning to do obviously because it's not running great, but once you get it started up, you know you're on a path to hitting up the track and tearing up some dirt, whatever you want to do. So yeah, that's the basics of how to get your standalone PCM running. You're going to run into some stuff that I haven't mentioned, you know, because that's specific to your car, specific to your problems, whatever you have. But if you have a good base automotive understanding, you'll be able to figure out why it's not running right. And if you still have troubles, you know, there's lots of forums. DIY Auto-Tune is pretty great about helping their customers figure out their problems. They have a huge, like 140-page manual that goes into good detail about all the problems and, you know, common stuff people run into. But if you stick with it, you can figure it out. And it's really fun once you start to get going and see your car start to make some power.